Alright, fellas. Just as unceremoniously, unannounced, cringy, babbling and low production value, as has always been the case. This is Epic Ness, and I'm just recording this now, getting this out of the way and off my chest. It's been sitting there for years, and, no one cares anyway, so just going off the cuff, unscripted as usual, and just putting it out there. Let anybody who gives a fuck get back to me in their own way. So I am not going to be streaming in any capacity anymore. I mean, I already basically wasn't. And if it wasn't obvious, I am looking to retire from speedrunning. I mean, this has really been like on the severe decline. My interest and attention for years and years and years, right? But I've always had a big twinkle in my eye about it all, and so I'm going to try and just kind of quickly lay out why. Some recent events are just like kind of my shift in emotions over the last couple years, what's going on with me, what I'll be doing, and anyone that wants to make anything of it can, but I know that's in all reality I don't have very much impact or any much of a following despite being at this on and off for like 10 years. So let's just get at it. So, first off, let's just look at the reality of streaming for me. So, streaming in general has always been extraordinarily difficult for me, despite what my low production values would have you believe. Without getting into it too much, my parents literally gave me a severe negative generational wealth in the sense that they abused me very deeply in so many different capacities and also left me incredibly poor. And just, I have very shitty, very extraordinarily shitty hardware. My PC, I've never had a PC with a graphics card. I've never had a PC that was like beyond Windows 7 maybe install. And for the vast majority of my life have always just been on the one Windows XP, Windows Vista starting computer from like 2005 or something, right? As a result, and also had extraordinarily terrible internet until after I moved out. But internet is not enough to carry streaming, obviously. My computer lags like crazy trying to do fucking anything. Even when running Ratatouille, I could not get even a basic 60 FPS running that game, and my recording software, which is literally just OBS, like the same shit everyone else uses. So even just from a basic bitch performance standard of speedrunning, I can't do anything. Now, on top of that, in terms of utilizing the streaming medium in any capacity, I can't do anything. All I've ever had to express myself is my enthusiasm and my words, and trying to, showcase my, earnest empathy for other people in community, but also my passion within my gameplay, right? And the extents at which I would try things and how long and how arduously I would work towards things. I've had thousands and thousands of stupid fucking ideas of other things that I've wanted to do with like making emotes, with fucking like making, you know, guides, making, just much more actually tolerable content. But it's also something where I've gone back and forth a lot with the format of Twitch, of what people consider of streaming, like the tools within that. I think it's a very untapped medium. But also, I'm talking out of my ass because I don't even know how to do basic bullshit. So, like, I can say all the things in the world, but I can't even, like, you know, I never had a dual monitor setup. I'm not able to have even multiple sources going on at once. I don't know how to fucking video edit. I don't know how to fucking image edit. I've made some attempts in those. I have like a like 1/4 functional PC, but like I my the time frame in which I've received the ability to make attempts towards any of those things versus the like my motivation has fallen off way long after, and like it's such a high barrier to entry for me when I've lived in absolute poverty. I've not had access to my fucking life sustaining medication for numerous years in a row. um, like I've had way higher priorities, unfortunately, that should also have taken place before. Like the fact that I streamed at all has been and always has been a miracle and a half, right? But it's also tragic. Like my output is garbage. My output is like dozens of hours of me attempting the same shit on hardware, not even being able to run an emulator or using save states, and just like the most like brutal brain dead bullshit no one would ever want to watch ad nauseum for 10 fucking years. And like, yeah, I personally had fun with it, but as far as like why I actually was speedrunning at all, I thought that the games that I was running deserved a lot more praise and attention than they ever received. Now, yes, I do think in regards to my biggest two speed games, Ratatouille and The Legend of Spyro, both have managed to garner somewhat of a cult following, or at least like, a little bit of a community, thanks in decent part to my efforts with them. And yes, I am incredibly grateful for that. However, the sense of disparity between my effort versus the type of attention received, and I'm not necessarily saying like I'm just in it for the views. Yes, I'm in it for the love of the game. I've always like been in it because of the love of that and because of the love of prior influences in the speedrunning space that inspired me many years ago. Narcissa Wright, I've always said as someone that really, really opened my eyes in terms of like how you can look at video games. And myself starting speedrunning was also something that I started in response to that, but also out of desperation for feeling like I had no avenues to express myself in my life. So, that being said, there's like dozens of other creative spaces that I wanted to have procked into, and I still haven't gotten to. And I don't know if I ever will, to be honest with you, because I've just been dealt like the worst fucking hand possible in life, and don't really believe in seeing a return on investment in any of those things, whether it's drawing, whether it's writing, whether it's rendering, like creating 3D objects and animations, anything. I unfortunately have a very poor outlook on that side of things, and streaming has now also fallen into that metric. With the hardware for streaming, it always becomes there's always something more to have to know about, and there's also a lot of hive mind mentality and luck in regards to actually receiving exposure. Unfortunately, with the games that I've chosen to try and prop up, I also have an uphill battle in that front. Yes, it would make more sense to play more popular games to get viewership first and then try to bring people over into it, but c'est la vie. Um, I've never had, you know, everyone that has given me any level of viewership has been maybe out of pure coincidence, but they are all they are all true ones. They are all very very passionate, very earnest, down to earth people that I have been fortunate to come across. I'm very lucky to be living with one of them now. Um, I very dearly wish that I could have been a larger part of the lives of people that I've attracted. I feel like I am constantly letting down people, particularly in the ratatouille community, because I've always had big plans and spoken highly of kind of the scenes there, but then never really able to fulfill any of my plans. I will say, kind of derailing from streaming itself, looking at Ratatouille in particular. Let's just talk about each of the communities and why they fucking sucked in one way or another. Not always, but just at certain periods in their history that made it abysmal for me. So Ratatouille, as all licensed games tend to do, got cursed with a wave of initial people treating it like a fucking joke and something that could only ever be a fucking joke, and refused to do anything as far as upkeep or relinquishing control of that. There was so much excitement and experimentation within the game that that effort was on full speed, but anything else to try and actually support the runners in terms of keeping and making rules in regards to hardware, FPS limits, um, accessibility in terms of resources for new players, keeping good notes on the routes, techniques, all that kind of stuff. Um, and also just random fucking Discord drama fell very much by the wayside because there was just no uh, organizational structure whatsoever. So I ended up being like one of a good handful of very impassioned people that you know were pushing the game extensively and had like a lot of knowledge, but there was never a strong base made for that, let alone anyone to kind of put framework to actually like encapsulate that. A lot of it was like you just had to be there to be in the know or be a part of it, and as far as also like furthering our reach or whatever, kind of like allowing other people to have kind of like um, a window, some insight into it, never really got to happen. Um, and just also focusing on kind of like a more community aspect. I will say the Ratatouille colony, the rat colony, has been much better community wise than just about any speedrun community that I've ever seen. Um, there's a lot of little cliques in there and just like a lot of mutual respect between players, a lot of earnest communication, a lot of like little, jabs and jokes between players, interest in meeting up, being able to talk about things outside of the game and like keeping tabs on each other in life and everything. Like, the Ratatouille community is genuinely beautiful and gorgeous. I I feel regret every day that, you know, organizationally wise, and like trying to foster that was always my ultimate goal in terms of speed running. Um, and my main reasons for speed running were that, as well as, again, like bringing attention to the artistic merits of these games. And I do feel like Ratatouille has succeeded in that in a decent capacity, but there's a lot more that was left um, to be desired. Biggest of which being the whole absolutely idiotic um, Ratatouille multi-Discord debacle that went on for several years. I'm just going to say this right now. Fuck the other Ratatouille communities, in particular Zaya and and Catherine. Yeah, fuck it. They're both cunts. I understand that obviously there were some unsavory figures and comments that very much should never have been made, or were, made with no tact in regards to um, political transgenderism kind of stuff that like didn't really have much of a sense to be held in a Discord, and really is an ineffectual aspect of uh, community space. But there was also a lot of belligerence in regards to the communication on having a multi Discord, and I think there was also some fallout from like the fact that there was already like barely some structure in the Ratatouille Discord. There was even less so for the other Rat games, and they also ended up later on having trouble establishing themselves in the same way that Asobo did. Asobo kind of like carved a niche for themselves, but then some people would kind of see it as like, oh, well, Asobo's only interested in themselves, or like, not interested in other games, or like, kind of trying to push them under the rug and all this stuff. And yeah, I do think that there were people that like, you know, were kind of like would speak ill, or like had active disinterest in the games, but genuinely there was a lot of kind of like threats and slander in regards to the Asobo community, and I was also in agreement that there were a lot of problematic aspects to Asobo, and I did still want to see these other games just having a basic platform to speedrun should not be something ever. It should not be something that is ever taken away from any game. Every game deserves that, unimpeded, without question. You should not have to fight to have a basic fucking board and a basic fucking forum to communicate. That is a right of the internet, right? It's an open fucking forum. It's stupid. It's a stupid fucking video game hobby at the end of the day. Like, there is no reason to gatekeep that. There is no reason to gatekeep just being able to create the foundation for people who are actually interested in something to have a group to discuss and organize as they see fit. However, that does not mean that other communities have to adopt or support you in the specific ways or whatever that you insist. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of good feedback that I had received, and certain problematic things within how Sobo organized boards, information, the ways in which certain members would carry themselves and whatever in the past. That, I agreed with. I'm always been someone that's open to having conversation, hearing criticism, all those sorts of things. But when I tried to get into the nitty gritty with it, there was a huge effort that I made to bring the ambassadors of these other games together and okay, how do we, sell this? I want to hear your complaints. I want to know how to address it. And, there, I got dragged along. I would talk with these people in their other discords and stuff about okay, where I hear you and that's concerning. Where do these complaints come from? And I could never get much of a straight answer. And when I was first promoted to the Discord owner for Ratatouille, I also one of the first things I did was bring in those other people to be able to have those conversations. I extended the olive branch, I'm reaching out of the fucking tree, ready to fall over to hand these people this olive branch, and I drafted up numerous ideas in terms of what we could do to create harmony and further awareness of these games. Incentivization of oh hey, we can have kind of trivia, rat newsletters, stuff to kind of get exciting little tidbits about the games, whether it was new events, whether it was just little factoids about the games, whether and more regular races or events, or little, just trying to do these little spotlight pieces, as well as granting them their own representation within Asoba, and also talking about okay, how we'd want to go about the channel organization for such, all those kind of things. But when I was at the kind of at the 11th hour, the Zaya pulled back, and likewise with Hoon and the other rat moderators. But I was particularly upset with Zaya because I had very long and personal conversations about it with them prior, and despite having made a very large conversation about it, no one was willing to put in the work at the end of the day. So, everyone has since gone forth in apathy. Everyone has since, despite that apparently being the big rage for years, has just given up and said, that this is impossible, despite that I tried vehemently to support them and carve a space. And there's a bunch of, I'm not gonna try and make it a hit piece, but long story short, that's not the first, nor would it be the last time, unfortunately, that in I've had them back out on me. I've tried to be, vulnerable for people, and I felt that also throughout certain things I had tried to advocate to being put into the leaderboards months and years before they happened. So I kind of tripped over my own words for a little bit there, but all of that is to say that there's been a lot within my time there trying to get what I thought should have been like fundamental aspects of rule sets and organization of information that ended up causing me a lot of stress in what was supposed to be a fun hobby, that I think really stunted our game, that really ended up creating a hostile environment that ended up driving away a lot of talented runners. We've had so many different runners that did like 5 or 6 different runs and then left out of the Discord. We have had many people in the past saying about how they left because of it just being kind of like dramatic, and unfortunately, it took so long to settle so many of those things. And, I'm not looking to really focus on it all too much either. I'm saying all this just as a like historical piece and to say it's all stupid. Why the fuck was this anything that we had to deal with as a community? Why does any fucking community have to deal with that? It's not even that complicated. If it was something like with more like nuance or like anything on like a basic fundamental of competition and goodwill, then yes, I understand why that could be like a troublesome patch, but like, no, there was just like so much bullshit back and forth, and there's so much there I don't even really remember. I mean, I have old documents of like, oh hey, this is what Rat needs now or whatever. Loading time removal was something that took forever to get. Separation of the PC and console boards. Um, and yeah, like after like everyone that I had brought in and said, "Oh yeah, Epic, these are great ideas. I want to help you with this." They all fucked off and just kind of left me, and I was like, "Well, it really hurt on a personal level." And for me, community is, and communicate, like that's the only thing that makes a community work, let alone a moderation team. And so because of the lack of that, I ultimately like just left my post pretty dormant. There have been some people within Ratatouille that have, certainly picked up the torch, but I don't know, man. The larger reaching alterations I was looking to make are just like, just became a pipe dream, really. So, really unfortunate there. Um, and I know also that because of that, I have not been too good for the, uh, there have been continued to be things left unattended, and I've not been a good ambassador for that community either. So like, I do want to apologize because I know like it's very two-faced of me to have said all the things that I wanted to do and fought and spoken very harshly in the past about like how much needs to happen for the game, and then to be in the position to potentially do so and then not really do hardly anything. It's it's a big jackass move, so, like, I know. I would not blame people for hating me. I mean, I did try to and did instill, like, some changes, but obviously compared to what I was saying I would do, very much fell short, so sorry about that. Um, in terms of Legend of Spyro, that one, so if you're only familiar with the currently existing Discord, then you're probably not too privy to any of the trouble with that. But unfortunately, Legend of Spyro was made insanely difficult for anyone to look into in a very obvious, demeaning, and I believe intentional way from the OG trilogy mods. Maybe not intentional, but it was like so deep of a cut that it was frankly disgusting. And the like the level of neglect makes me believe that it's intentional, but it could also just be like an abhorrent level of ignorance. So, for one, like, so this was the first, so this is coming back to Eternal Night now. First game I ever ran. First game, like, I made a huge um, exploration and posts in regards to new techniques, out of bounds routing, all that bullshit with New Game Plus. Very early on, I made a big stink about trying to, for myself, about making my first post like really professional. Like, okay, here's the run. It's not very well recorded because, again, I have trash hardware. But, you know, this is explaining every section. I tried to be incredibly professional and thorough because I thought that that was the, you know, that was the air you should carry yourself. Like, that was the kind of grace that speedrunning should be treated with. I thought of it as a very, like, you know, oh, this is a grandiose thing. It deserves treated. It deserves to be treated. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like a royal thing, but I don't know. Anyway, it's a fucking respect thing. Uh, reverence. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I thought that, like, it should be treated with reverence. That's how I had looked at it in you know, watching it prior. And I know, like, young stupid kid, oh, you know, sorry for thinking of this like as a performance art, and, you know, it's a dumb, like, niche thing, and in the grand scheme of the world no one's ever gonna care, so, you know, fuck you. But I can't, I didn't know that at the time, and I still don't know how much of that is truth of reality and how much that is us under, how much that is the medium and of speedrunning underselling itself. I go very back and forth on that. But anyway, I took as much diligence as I could with that. And, you know, I'd gotten into the Spyro Discord. I had messaged mods multiple times about the rule sets for Eternal Night. I wrote them out simply, plainly, exactly. All they had to do was copy and paste them. Literally all they had to do, or just make me mod, because holy shit, I'm the only one that cares about the games. But no, of course, it was much better to have shell pages made that didn't reflect anything about the game in terms of its rules, in terms of its themes, in terms of, who actually knows anything about the games, in terms of rules that regulations around submissions and hardware that actually reflect the game, um, and obfuscated information and clarity in terms of posting runs. They would, just had super bare bones, like, oh yeah, time starts here and stops here, but was not clear at all, like, if that's, like, I have, like, screenshots and shit. I don't want to, like, get into all the nitty-gritty of it, because this is already going to be a long rant. But that showed an inherent lack of care. I had tried to post other runs. The thing that really did me in early on into my speedrunning endeavors was when I had a run where I was trying to encourage people to reach out to me on Twitch or whatever if you want to learn more about the game. And for whatever reason, I had a run rejected. I never got a reason as to why my run was rejected. Not on speedrun.com. No one reached out to me about it. And I tried to find out about it and still could not find out. And there was not a space on Spyro Discord to talk about the games at all. For the longest time, it was grouped under miscellaneous with about, like, 10 other games. And there's no way to provide clear information in a channel that's shared with 10 other fucking games. And, despite that there was, like, kind of a little bit of, like, a buzz of, like, oh, hey, it's neat to see this other game, there wasn't any attempt at, helping understand, like, where I could post anything, where I could, like, make any guides, or, like, there was, and of course, because the big thing about these shell pages is that they were owned and dictated by the original Spyro crew. They had ultimate modship and leadership over it, and also had control of what discords it linked to, and so without maybe realizing it, they controlled the narrative in terms of, like, hey, I know I'm technically not that much or did not have much data or like a specific place to pinpoint them to, but it also seemed like I had no option. I had no, like, it wasn't allowed to create one otherwise. Like, oh, this is the space where you post these things, because it was just pre-set up like that. And, I couldn't, like, just make another speedrun.com page either. There were existing runs. And it turned out also that the people who did run those games at all, for the most part, or at least the larger runners of those, also were cheaters or spoke ill about that. Some of my earlier runs, I'd gotten a lot of complaints about how using Dark Spyro was cheating, right? Despite the fact that it was obviously like a different fucking category. Um, and that it was like, you know, skillless. Like shooting it, there was a lot of shooting down my efforts before they even got off the ground. It was insanely rare to get anybody to have eyeballs on Eternal Night because it was like buried beneath so many layers of bureaucracy. And I mean, obviously, yeah, it was going to be obscure either fucking way, but there were numerous times throughout the years where people were interested, or it could have had like anything, and I ended up just fucking grinding and playing that game by myself and for myself. And it's tragic because it other people were not allowed to participate in that history. Um, and I did try to document things quite a bit up till then, but you know, I was ultimately very directly but indirectly told like, fuck you, no one cares. Um, you know, I ended up learning years later when I went to try and make the Legend of Spyro Discord. That was actually going to be like a big point in which I was going to like give up on speedrunning because I was like, all right, I'm just gonna throw this at the wall as like a final thing. If anyone comes around, or I had to like fight just for a platform, which is bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. Um, and also, I did have when I had posted my rules to the Legend of Spyro forum pages on speedrun.com, I had some of my posts deleted and then follow-up posts saying, hey, the rules have been updated for the Legend of Spyro games. um, any questions, go here. Maybe, I don't even remember if that was the case, but like they were barely updated, like maybe added a bullet point or two, and again did not take into account any of the concise, nuanced points that I had brought up in relation to those things. Um, so there's some. So okay, coming back to the creation of the Discord. I ended up learning that there were Discords made for every other Spyro game because there was no, again, like, there was no space for those things to flourish. So they had to make them for themselves, and everyone, like, congregated there. There's a lot of animosity in regards to leadership and, like, how much uh, either competency or elitism there was around that. Like, they're trying to say that they're a community, or like, oh yeah, they tried to say about, you know, I think either in regards to establishing these discords or changing the Discord links, that it would be like we were trying to like break up the Spyro community, when really everyone in that Discord is only there for the original trilogy, and that's like the most obvious, blatantly obvious, open secret shit imaginable at the time frame in which I'm talking about. They have done some significant things to try and, open a place for discussion for other titles now. But it took a lot of coaxing and iteration to get there. There was such a blindness in that because these people were so fiercely surrounded by all of the support for the original trilogy, and everything else to them was a meme game. And that's fine to have that personal opinion, but that does not mean you get to squander other people's desires to play their own game competitively that doesn't fucking affect you. Get your fucking ass out of these matters that don't concern you. So I unintentionally made a large rift in the main Spyro community, and there was like efforts to try and convince me to like limit how much I would change the boards or certain things, or trying to like course correct decisions I knew were more appropriate for the game. None of those fuckers ever fucking completed the games that they were trying to, be decision makers on. Maybe they played them once or twice, but none of those fuckers ever did a run. I had thousands of fucking hours on them, and they were trying to tell me what to do. So, I could go on. I'm sure there were other bits that I can... Oh yeah, there was also that Spyro, like, 3.5 or whatever, like, ROM hack. That got a speedrun.com page day fucking one. Appropriate rules, all that shit. I had to fight 10 fucking years to get that. For a game that was publicly, officially, like, released by, like, a, like, full, like, AAA developer or whatever. I don't know if Chrome fucking counts as AAA, but, all of this is to say, dealing with those bastards is one of the most patronizing, agonizing, and belittling experiences I think I have ever had. Especially in a hobby, bro. Again, I was not able to have any communication with them throughout that time either, because I had DM'd and I had, said my pieces, and I just get fucking radio silence, dude. Let me see, actually. I have hidden in my Discord. Personal notes. I have a very long version of this in text, actually, I forgot about. So anyway, I'm glad that there's managed to be a microcosm now within my Discord that other people jumped onto it. Like, honestly, that Discord was the only reason I didn't stop right there. Seeing people finally, like, come out of the woodwork and be able to present themselves and then be able to have a fucking conversation about the fucking game that we care about was like such a rejuvenating and like historic anomaly within the ecosystem that I'd had to operate in. It made me want to cry. Right? There's no reason it should have taken that long. I mean, there's like, how many members are in this Discord? It's not existed all that long. I remember we got like 80 members or something crazy in the first year. How do I see? Yeah, there's over 100 members in that Discord, bro. Like, still obviously niche, but like, what the fuck? It's not like a 5-member, 15-member. No. People are interested. Whether it's passively, whether it's right, like, and same with Dawn. Dawn also had a lot of very interesting tech, but like being able to, like, but it was very, like we had to, after my Discord was created, we reverse engineered a lot of those techniques, and a lot of them had been known, quote unquote, for like 15 fucking years. But because there never got to be any documentation about it, no one could take them and replicate them, let alone do anything further with them. So it was like, it just so stifled, it ended up like being this infinite loop of like snake eating its own tail in terms of progression in the speedrun. There are like only 2 people that happen to know that, and also they get kept information too, to be fair, but yeah. I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to have that Discord, to see that people have been able to do what I wanted and believed that I was going to get to do when I joined speedrunning from day one. My point in saying all of this, and it's so good to have actual like tools and starting to get visuals and guides for these things, and also interest and efforts in data mining, extracting certain assets and textures and bullshit, like finding unknown cheats. Like, these games did not need to be shrouded in mystery and unapproachable for so fucking long. I really, really think that in regards to Legend of Spyro as a whole, like, developmentally, even, like, in terms of just, like, whatever, there's so much about those games that we've been set back 10 years in some regards because of the apathy of the jerks that run the Spyro Discord, or that ran it. They're not, it's not nearly as bad now. But, you know, I never got apologies, clarification, information about my runs that got rejected, my posts that got deleted. Never contacted about it. Never had anybody extend an ear after I spent so much time and clarity and effort in terms of bringing attention to what should have just been made from the first place. When you're trying to, like, just make a shell for people to be able to submit runs to or whatever. Like, it's so dehumanizing, honestly. The experiences that I've had in these speedrunning communities, in terms of having to create them from the ground up and being perpetually held back by others, and also and apathy, like, these are things that I have actively spoken against and said would ultimately, like, kill speedrunning as a scene before it even gets going. And I think, unfortunately, despite how strongly I have felt about speedrunning and it being a place to foster relationships, to learn about, you know, underlying intellectual abilities that you may have in terms of kind of like finding efficiencies, whether it's like visualizations, video creations, socializing skills or networking skill sets. Like, there's a lot that can come out of speedrunning that even just on the performance side, in terms of like perseverance, right? In terms of kind of like the mindset within all of that. Like, there's so many things about speedrunning that no matter how degenerate you see the hobby as, there are aspects of it that are genuine, wonderful parts of humanity. They're wonderful assets to any human being, to any community, to any group. And I don't think we celebrate, let alone reproduce and prop up these things nearly as much as we should. I know it's very easy for it to be, obviously, yes, it does have to be a self-driven hobby in some regard, but I think the vast majority of speedrun communities forget to recognize the like group effort and kind of like playing back and forth off of each other. Yeah, some communities do create events and do create kind of like little in-jokes and stuff, but we can make a lot more happen on a friendly personal level and in terms of exposure for this hobby and in terms of standardization of, I think, the etiquette and organization for these things needs to be done with more tact if speedrunning's ever going to be more than like that laughable thing people do in their basements, right? Let me also tell you briefly about my experience with Games Done Quick this year. Now, I've gone the other 2 years that it's been in Pittsburgh. I did submit Eternal Night. Did not get in. Of course, all the new GDQ is a fucking gaming tourist thing. They play shit ass, music from random, hyper popular NES games and stuff on the speakers, and they pull in runs from new games. They don't certain games, if they're new, they're just a shoe-in. It doesn't matter if it's actually an engaging run or if it actually like has something captivating to it. That doesn't. They do try to get a mix of runs, but like I think they're more interested in what game it is than what the run is. Obviously, they do have to do it for viewership, but anyway. The kind of things that people think of doing at GDQ, I think should become standard and regular practice. We do not need to have this once a year, twice a year type of event as like the only time that we truly convene and like feel connected and emphatic about this hobby. And we don't need to, spend another couple $100 to go to this other venue just to meet up. And I think, even when I do see people, like, I just get the sense that overall the speedrun environment is a lot less ambitious than it should be outside of chasing world record. When I went to GDQ this year, so I bought my ticket month in advance. They did not have my badge printed. I could not attend for, the first 3/4 of the day or whatever. They said, hey, your badge is like gonna take at least another 3 hours to print. We fell behind printing badges, and you can't even go to the room to play games, even if you brought your own console and stuff, right? That's literally all I like to go for. On the off chance someone else will try to see what I'm doing. Same as like when I stream, right? And it's like, oh, sorry. There's nothing else that we can do for you. You can like sit in the hotel lobby and do nothing if you want. I came back later in the evening, about 10 or 11, because they said, several hours, and you come towards the end of the day, it might shut, and it's a 24-hour event, and, I have to take the bus also. Remember, this is an event that people fly in from out of state, out of the country even, to attend. Like, they're already spending hundreds, if not thousands, to fly over, get a room. And you can also even pay for admission at the door. I came back later in the evening and they had the desk closed for entry. I ended up finding someone in staff. I'm like, I have proof of purchase on my phone. I've been here to other events, and understandably, but also stupidly, like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. You'll have to come back like 8 a.m. when they open the event again, or they open entry again. So I ended up just fucking going to my friend's house and playing video games with him. And then we tried to catch stream, and, of course, even the first day, they're like multiple hours behind schedule. They ended up canceling the only run that we were interested in, which was Brawl, if you were curious. And so, I was just fucking bummed. Like, how poorly that shit's run. Like, I know things happen, but... Come on, bro. I didn't want to say anything because I was so astonished, and, it's also like... It's a charity. What the fuck am I gonna do? And, I get this sense that they're almost a little, like... they're so apathetic and kind of normy about it that, like, it's the only big speedrunning event besides ESA, so, like, fuck you. Is kind of how it feels. I do think, obviously, still that they do a lot of good. That, obviously, it's been a life-changing event for many people, and does a great deal of good in regards to their donations. Has its heart in the right place in some regards, but I just feel like it also being like the pinnacle of what our community has accomplished is also kind of depressing. I think it's underwhelming. Because, like, ultimately, getting to see the runs are what makes it, right? But it's not all that much different seeing them live. It's nice that they have, consoles so that they can loan out. And, the arcade setup or whatever, but, like... I just wish there was more, man. Like, I don't know, fucking, like... I don't know, like a continental breakfast or, like... just, like, other little, like, side activities to, like, find more nuanced reasons and people to connect with. Just something, man. I don't know. But yeah, ultimately, am I happy that I participated in speedrunning? Yes. I know it's something I would have done no matter what. What would have gone. Am I happy with the results? Fuck no. I feel like I have wasted my life, and that the things that I have touted this hobby for and prided on or advocated for so harshly are not actually recognized or represented I feel like the type of attention that the games that I have pioneered has not been the type of response that I'm looking to get. Like, with Eternal Night in particular, I always, I finally started to get feedback on it, and it's like, oh, that game's terrible, but it's a good speed run. And that's ultimately not what I was looking to show. So clearly, what I've been doing has not worked. It has never worked. I'm not going to go through the hell to get better production quality to make it better. I'm not motivated to make anything. My creative side has died over the last several years, and that's another larger conversation. But like, yeah, I don't feel motivated, and because of that, I don't feel invested. And so as far as everything goes, my hopes have been, and even just when I had made the Discord from the beginning for Legend of Spyro and for Rat, the idea was like, oh, I'll finish up these kind of housekeeping things and leave, and that's ultimately what I'm gonna do. Eternal Night, I mean, any percent unfortunately changed so much, so like the guides I would have made for it are fucking useless. But I'm gonna at least make one for New Game Plus, and I'm going to get sub 30, and then that's gonna be it. I don't know what the fuck I'll do. I mean, I need to give the Discord to someone else. I should probably do the same with Rat. But yeah, I'm just so depressed and fed up, and like don't see a reason to try anymore. I'll probably still fuck around with games on my own time, but trying to be like, I never really wanted to do any of the ambassador shit anyway, right? It kind of came out more out of necessity. I wanted to kind of create events and do more creative things, but I don't have the time frame or means or anything, and unfortunately most people don't, and most people don't make the point of it. And I think speedrunning will ultimately always be in this obscurity and limbo, because people will be very passionate about it, but they're only ever operating as like a bunch of individuals in a vacuum, really. They have proximity to each other, but not connectivity with each other. And yeah, so I think that's all I've got to say. So yeah, I'm retiring. I want to kill myself. All these things should be obvious, but